All right, so today we are going to continue from where we stopped last time. Uh, but before I jump into what we'll be doing there today, I would like to go over what we talked about last time. So last time there we talked about the conditional operator. Yeah, and under the conditional operator, we were able to use our if statements, use our if else statement. We use this our if else if ladder there like that. I see some other one, but I don't want to waste time now. So when their time comes, I'm going to bring them in because I just want to explain all those basic one first before we move into the other one there like that. And we talked a lot about different ways of using your if else and so forth like that. So if you check the previous video, you are going to see everything there. But I see some other one that we've not touched, which what we're going to be doing later on, which is this conditional statement. We have the switch, and apart from that one, we have this other one under this control flow, which is loop. So I've not talked about it for each and while loop, and all this one I will bring them in when we're actually dealing with element on the screen. When we are modifying the content on the screen, that's what I'm going to bring them in there like that. But it's not only used for modifying the content on the page or to do some stuff on the page. You can use it in general as a JavaScript constructor there like that. But for today, I will start with this array section here, which is something I explained to in the last class, but I will go over it again. And what is array? I told you in our last class there that we use array to hold multiple values at the same time. So you have a variable, but this is your variable here. You want it to be able to hold multiple values at the same time, just like what I have here on line 244. So I have a variable users here, but this variable now I want it to be able to hold multiple value at the same time. So what do you use? You'll be using array. Array allows you to put multiple value into a single variable. So if you are working with a list of user now, you don't need to start creating variable for each one of them. Since all of them are user, you can just put them together in a single variable, and anytime you need any of the value from that variable, you just call the one that you're looking for from that particular variable that you're using to hold everything. And as you can see on this line 244, once again, I have this variable that is holding all these values. So how do you recognize array? So to have an array, you are going to create your variable. You don't need to create variable, but it's always good that you save this in a variable. So here now I'm creating a variable score. But what did I want to put inside it? I want to put multiple values. So I want to put 30, I want to put 45, and I want to put 60. But this single variable will be the one that is going to hold these three values. So what I need to do, I need to create array. And how do you create array? Is by using this square bracket here. So once you use this square bracket, what you are doing here is that this variable now is array of whatever values that you are going to put inside it. Because the value can be anything, can be all those values that we've talked about under the data type. So we have number, we have a boolean, and a lot of them that we've talked about there. So I don't need to go over all those one again. So here now we have a single variable, and this single variable is going to hold multiple values. So how do you do that? You create array. And how do you create array? The simplest way of creating array in JavaScript is by using this square bracket here. So once you have this square bracket, you already have a basic array. So it's not less for you to put whatever value that you want to put inside the variable there. So here I said I want to put 30, I want to put 45, and I want to put 60. So which means this single variable now is holding these three values at the same time. How is that possible? So in order for this thing to be possible, you need to create array. Once again, you are going to use the square bracket, and this square bracket here, inside it, you are going to supply all the values that you want this your array to hold, and each one of the value are going to be separated by comma there. So you can put space, or you don't need to put space. Don't want to put space, you just leave it there. But this comma here is very important because that's what this array is going to use to separate each one of the value from each other there like that. So what we just add here is array of a number, but don't forget I mentioned it that array can hold multiple value of different type or same type. Right now I have an array of numbers, but that doesn't mean I can create array of a mixture of number and other types there like that. And once you have your array, then you can have access to whatever that is inside it at once, or you can take any one of the value that you want from your array there. So if I save this one, and nothing will happen yet because we only create this our array here. We've not really used our array. So in order for you to use the array, for example here, I just console log it out or by printing it out to the console there. And if I see, you see that in my console here, I have the value printed, and as you can see, it's telling us that we have three values inside our array there. But this is not what we want most of the time. So this is not what you want most of the time, like that, because you don't just want to be accessing all the value at once. You only want to pick a specific value from your array. And last time I talked about how you can get a specific value from the array by using the index of the array there. So if you want to have access to the first value of this array, you need to use index 0. Don't forget, index means you are starting counting from 0 instead of counting from 1. So when you mention index in programming in general, anywhere you hear the word index, what they are telling you that your counting is going to start from 0. And when you hear the word position, it means you do your normal counting, which is from 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth like that. So an array uses this concept of index to give you value at a specific position there. So if you want to have access to the first value inside the array, you need to use index 0. If you want to have access to the second element inside the array, you need to use index 1 and so forth like that. And I told you last time too that once you know the position of the element that you want to access there, just remove -1. That's what is going to be your index there like that. So like this course now, assuming we want to access to that 45 now. So what we just need to do here is just to use the index that is going to give us 45. And for you to have access to the index, what do you need to do? You just need to call your variable. In front of a variable, you pass your square, which denote the array there, and you want to have access to a particular value from that array. So which value? To supply the index. So now if I put 1, which is going to give us the second value. Don't forget, this thing is not based on position, it's based on index. And index starts counting from 0. So which means the first value is on index 0, the second value is on index 1, the third one index 2, the next one, and so forth like that. So the index follows according to where you place the value there. And if I save it here now, you see that we are getting back 45 as our value based on what we typed on this line 258 like that, because this thing is going to give us the value at that index. And as you can see, we are getting 45. So if I need that 30 now, I just need to put 0, because the first element is always on index 0. The first one is always on index 0. The second one is always on index 1, and so forth like that, depending on the number of items you have inside your array. And as you can see here, this is our scores, which is holding these three values, and we are accessing the first one. So if I want to access the third element that is here, I just need to use 2. Don't forget, index is different from position. So when you have access to the element on position 30, you know that you need to use index 29, because the index is always your position -1. That's how it works. So whatever element you want to have access to, and you know the position of that element, just remove -1, and you are going to get the index to get to that particular element there. And if I save it now, you see that this thing is going to give us 60. But if you give it more than what is expecting from you, what you are going to get is undefined. For example, now, if I pass 6, what I'm saying here is that I'm looking for the element at index 6. But if you look at the array we are currently working on now, there is nothing like index 6 here, because we only have the highest index here is 2, because the first one is at 0, The second one is a 1, and the third one is 2. And that's all. So we don't have anything like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so forth like that. But here now we say we want to access the one on index 6. So if I save it, what you're going to get is undefined because there is no value at index 6 for this particular array here. So if you give it any index that it doesn't know about, this is what you're going to get there, undefined. So anytime you're dealing with your array and you supply invalid index, you are going to get undefined because there's no index like that. But now if I add more values into this stuff and we're able to get up to that, you see that it's going to give us the value. Can anyone guess here now what is going to print out for this indexes here? So which value is going to come outside now? So what's the value here based on what we have right now? So what's going to be the value?
9.
So and if I save it, and can you see it's printing
Yes.
9 because this is 0, this is 1, this is 2,
2,
this is
3,
so
3,
0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
4.
and 6. Don't forget, if you are using position, but you don't count with position. As a programmer, when you are dealing with array, you always start with it. See that I did not start with 1. I started with 0. You use your index directly. Not that you do your normal position counting and remove -1. That's like people will see you as a baby in this stuff. Anytime you are counting in array, you always use index. Forget about position and there like that. Except if you are talking to someone that does not understand what you are saying. That's why you talk
Okay.
about position. But when you are dealing with coding, and you are dealing with a list like this, which is array, you always talk about index. So give me the elements on at index 5. Give me the element at index 2 and so forth like that. So it's the index that you always talk about. We don't talk about position like that. But when you're talking to someone that is not, in this field, then you can be using position to talk to them. But we don't use index here because this array is based. We don't use normal position here because the array is based on index like that. So if I want to have access to the 12 now, this is going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7,
5.
which is the next one. So if I want to have access to the next one, you just increase the index as the next element. Once you increase the index, it will give you the element that follows the current one with this indexes. So if I put 3 here now, we're going to get a value of index 3 there like that, which is still the same value. So let me change the value to 31 so that it will not look as if it's printing out this 3 like that. So as you can see, it's printing out the 31 because that has the element at that index. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So just like the way you can access any value at a particular index, you can modify a value there too. So you know how to modify the value is by using the assignment operator. So the only time you modify the a value for now is by using assignment operator. And what do you call the assignment? So here I have score. So you pass the index. So here, and as you can see, what this thing is saying in this line is that we want to modify a particular value inside this variable. But don't forget, this variable is not just holding a single value, it's holding multiple value. So in order for us to change the value at a particular index, we need to supply the index, then followed by this operator here. This is what we call assignment. And the job of this one is to change the value of whatever you have on the left. So whatever variable you have on the left is going to replace its value with whatever you have on the right hand side there. So what we are saying here is that the value at this index 2, we want to modify it and change it to this 100 like that. So before this line, if I console log out the scores, you're going to see that at index 2, the value is going to be 60 like that. But now, after this line, if I console log out the scores again, you see that the value will now be the new value. So if you look at it, the first time that we've not changed the value is 60 at that index. But after we've already changed the value, it's now 100, not the old value that is there. But other value are still intact. We do not touch them because we are only focusing on the value at index 2, not any other index. So an array can hold multiple value for you at the same time, and you can ask for any of the value that you want from it or modify the value because you'll be using this in a lot when you are dealing with that element on the screen. For example, here now, if you look at it, we have a lot of li on the screen. So I can target all of them and just select them at once. So if you look at it now, I said I'm selecting all of them at once, not just one. So which means all these elements will come back to me in a form of array, because I want to use a single variable to just represent all of them. Not that I'll be using one variable I'm going to use to hold this one, the second variable I'm going to use to hold this one, the third one. What if you have like 100 lists? Are you not going to be creating variable for each one of them? No. What do? We use array. So array is just your single variable that can hold multiple value at the same time. And once you hold all this value, you can ask this for any one of the value later on, that okay, give me this back, this value at this particular index, and so forth, like that. But if you notice, if you are dealing with array, array is only generating this index for us automatically, and this index here is what we call the key, because the key is what you are using to have access to the value. So 0 to have access to 30, 1 to have access to 45, and you are not the one, you don't have the say of this index. It's always been generated, like this thing will always be generated for you automatically based on the way you list your items. So the first one is always at index 0, the second one is always at index 1, and so forth like that. But unfortunately, it's not always possible that you'll be using array to represent a collection of items. Sometimes you want to have a variables to represent a model of what is happening in real world. And what did I mean by real world? Like when you talk about student now, for example, a student is one of a life example out there. So what if you want to model a student? You know, student here, you can just create a variable for student. But when you are creating a variable for student, there's a lot of things that is attached to students are there. So when you're talking about a student, there's a lot of things that is attached to the student there. One of the things that are attached to student is the name. So when you're talking about the students, you know, they have a course that they are doing there, like that. Again, too, another thing that is attached to the student is the level of the students. Apart from the level, there's a lot of other things too that you can attach to them. Maybe attach the CGPA and so forth like that. I won't go more than this because I don't want to make it longer. It's just to explain the concept of the next thing I want to talk about, which is object. So if you look at it now, can you see that here we have a separate key, or we have something that is representing the data that we want to put inside this variable? It's not like the array that you just put everything directly. You can actually use array, but array is not that useful in this area when you need to do something like this. For example, now I can create a student. So the first thing is the name of the student. The second thing is going to be the course of the student. The next one is going to be level, for example, like 200. Let me just put like this. And the next one is going to be the CGPA. So here now, this thing, if you want to have access to the name now, what do you use? You are going to use the index 0 for you to have access to what is here. For example, now, if I use raster here, and the course is computer science now. So you can actually use this thing to represent it, to represent a single student, where it's just array of the property of the student. And one of the property of the student is the name. Another property here is this course. The other one is level, and the other one here is the last one is this CGPA. But if somebody did not explain what is going on here, there is no way you know that this 200 here is just the level, or this 3.5 is the CGPA of the student. So it would be nice, instead of us using index to have access to all the value that is inside this array, it would be nice if I can assign a name to them instead of me using index to have access to the value. You know, for this score here, in order for you to have access to this 30, you need to use 0. For you to have access to 45, you need to use index 1 and so forth like that. The same thing here too. In order for you to have access to this raster inside the student, so we need to use student and this index 0 here. And if I save it, you see that we are getting raster. So if I want to have access to the course, it's just to use the index of that, what I'm looking for there. So if I use 1, you see that we are getting computer science. But I don't want to be using number like this. I don't want to be using index. I want to use a name to represent all this value here. So from this student here, I should be able to do something like this by just saying student of name. So whatever the name of the student, I want to get it. So look at what I'm typing here is what we call the key that you'll be using later on to represent the value instead of using array there like that. So instead of me doing this, I want to do something like this. So anytime I say student.course, I want it to return computer science for me. And anytime I do something like student.level, I want it to return 200. And anytime I do student.cgpa, like this, I want it to return 3.5. And that's where objects comes. So objects is what you can use to model a real outside world entity that have a lot of properties attached to it. So when you're talking about object add both properties and method. But what is method? You know about this one when we talk about variable tomorrow there. When we talk about function tomorrow. For now, we're only going to focus on the properties of the object. But objects are can have both the properties and the methods. So, and what is property? These are the features or these are the characteristics of this your entity that you are trying to model. For example, here now, we are trying to model a student entity, and you started mentioning some of the characteristics of the student. So, how can we create a type of that particular entity that we're talking about? So we can now use this object to generate both the properties and the methods that you're going to be seeing later. And what is this property? This property is just the characteristics of the entity that you're trying to work with. Like this student now, one of the characteristics here is the name, the course, the level, and this CGPA here. Because that's how all these things you are seeing on the screen are model. So this H1 that you are seeing here is just an object that has a lot of properties and methods that you can use later on to modify stuff on it. So once you know the concept of this object now, later on when we are dealing with all the elements on the screen, you'll be able to see that they are just objects that you can change something on them. What are those things that you can change? This is what we call properties. So this H1 here, it has property. And one of the properties here is the style of this element. It have the property for you to change like the text that is inside it and a lot of things there like that. But right now, we are trying to create our own. But later on, all the elements on the screen, they have already been created for you. Your own is just to use their properties and method. And when you need to modify, when you need to model your own entity too, this is how to create it. And that's the reason why I'm using this analogy here to kind of explain what you are going to be doing later on the screen there. So everything you are seeing on the page here, they are just objects. And from that object there, you can have access to its property and you can have access to its method. And one of the properties here is the style that you're seeing here because you are styling this into have yellow. So you can now talk to this that I want to get your style, that property style that is on you, I want to get it or you want to modify it and so forth like that. But how do you do it? That's what this thing is there for, to explain what is object. So object is a compound type or is a complex type, or you can call it is you know a types that contain other types inside it. So when you're talking about this is a complex type that you can use to model the real world entities that you're trying to incorporate into your application there. Like you create application for people to order products. This product you are trying, like people want to order, there are some characteristics about it. For example, like the name of the product, the image of the product, like the description of the product, and so forth like that. So you can use objects to describe what that your product is all about. And anytime you want to display anything on the screen, you just go to that object and take whatever properties that you need out of it. And what are the properties of this object that I just mentioned now? Is the name of the product, the description of the product, the price of the product, and so forth like that. So you model them like a object, and anytime you need something from it, you call that object and you call the property that you need from it like that. Not that you'll be using the index. So you can use array too, but array is not that useful in this world when you are modeling a particular entity there like that. But how do you create objects? So how do you now create objects? So how do we convert everything that we have here now to a proper object? So in order for you to be able to do the same, you need to know how to create objects. And to create objects, this is how we used to create objects. Just like the way I show you how to create array. When you want to create array there, what do? You use this square bracket. So anytime you have this square bracket, this JS know that you are dealing with array of values there. So here too, in order for JS to know that you are creating objects, we use this curly brace. Please, A difference between this and this. So this is what we use. The first one is what we use to create array, while the second one is what we use to create object. So just like what I mentioned there, like that. So I want to model a student, which I can call user here. So here, what I just did here is just to create object. But this object right now is not having anything. It's just an empty object. But you can actually add some stuff later on to it. But this is a valid object here. This is a valid object. So when you are creating object, you are going to create your variable. And once you create your variable, you are going to create this curly brace here. Once you assign this curly brace into this your variable, it means this your variable here is now an object that you can use to model whatever this user is all about. For example, here now I can have an object there which is going to be product, and here is an object. But right now it's not having anything. We do not really tell it that these are the properties or the methods of this object. We just said okay, we want to have this particular object, but I will be adding some stuff to it later on there, like that. But what we just did on these two lines is what we call creating of object, because you need to create your object. But is there every time that you'll be doing it like this? Like I'm just showing you how to create object, the simple object there. But when you are creating object, you always put whatever that object is representing there, like all the properties that needs to be inside the object. But how do you do that? So how do you create objects that have properties? And this is how we do object, or this is how we create object that have property here. So where you are going to be creating your object, but look at it now. Here it is empty, but right now it is not empty again. We are now putting something inside it. And whatever that is inside it here is what you'll be using to model the nature of your object. Just like what we mentioned here. We have students. We want to have a student object. But inside the object, we're going to have the name, we're going to have the course of the student, we're going to have the level of the student, and we're going to have the CGPA. So you can think of this name, the course, the level, and CGPA as the key. Because whatever key you are using, that's what you'll be using to access the value later on. So yeah, don't forget the name is this raster. So this course will be mapped to computer science, the level will be mapped to 200, and this CGPA will be mapped to 3.5. So how do you do that in object? You are going to create the key. Then in front of the key, you have the column, then followed by value, then you have this comma here, because you are going to have a lot of properties, not just one property. So this is one property here, this is another property, and this is another property. And since your object is going to contain a lot of properties, you need to separate each one of them with a comma here, like that. So for example, we can create a user object that has all these properties. So this is an example here where we have this user. So this user now is an object, and this our object here now. You see, it's having this property name, it have this property age, and it have this property is admin. So this particular user now, we just model it with this property. So it all depend on you what the definition of your object is. So whatever stuff that your object is going to represent, you are going to define them inside the object by using the key and the value of that particular property. So this is the name of the property, which is our name here. And what is the value of that property? It is Abdurraqib. So this is another property here, but it's still under user. So we have another property age under the user. And what is the value of it? It is 35. So another admin. And what is the value of that one? We have true. And you can add a lot of them like that. For example, like this CGPA, like this. So it's going to be 4.5. So this is another property. So this object, which is this, is having this property name, it's having this property age, it's having this property is admin, and it's having this property CGPA, like that. Which is going to be something like this H1 later on. So H1, it's having his text as one of the property, it's having his style as one of the property, and a lot of other things that I will be showing you when we get to the time that we're going to be modifying the content on the page. But this is the concept that is going on here on the screen with the browser, and JavaScript is doing behind the scene for you. But this is how you can generate your own object there, like that. So you have your object name, then inside the curly brace, you define all the properties and the methods that you want your object to have. But currently here, we're only showcasing the property, since we don't know what is function, because you need to know what is function before you can be talking about can be talking about the methods there like that. But currently here, we created our object, which has all these properties inside it like that. And from here now, I can access the object. Just like array too, this one will not give you one of the value, it will give you all the value. And as you can see, this thing wants to look like array. The difference is that we are not using this thing to repeat, we are not using 0, 1, 2, 3 and so forth like that to access the value. What you'll be using now is the key. And what are the key? They are the properties that you define inside your object. And how do you define property? So you start with the key, which is the name of the property there, followed by the column. Then the front of the column, you are going to add the value. And as you can see, I'm using different value here. So here I have string, I have number, here I have boolean. So your object, that's why I call it a complex or compound type, because it contains other types of value that we've talked about there. So it can contain array, it can contain object, it can contain your basic types that we talk about like boolean, string, null, undefined, and so forth like that. So object, you'll be using it to model the real entities that you'll be having on your site later on. So if you want to model the user now, maybe your user is only having all this property, then these are the properties you are going to put there. But if it is not the property that your user have there, then you put everything according to what you are trying to achieve there. Just like the way I mentioned the product. So here now, I want to showcase a product, but what is the product is all about? What is it there? What is inside this product? So we have the name of the product, but I'm going to have sugar like this. So what is the description of the product? Like that, you put whatever the description of the product, like whatever you need to type. So what is the price of the product like that? So the price is going to be 67 naira like that. So I'm using number to represent this one. So what are the sizes of the product? So here now I'm using array because we have different sizes. It's not just one value. It's going to be multiple values, as you can see. So this single product now, the name is sugar, the description is this, the price is this, and again we have different sizes that you can order for like that. So I just use object now to model this particular entity here. So where we have the name of it, the description of it, the price, and the sizes of the stuff there. And if I console log it out like that, it's not going to give me only the name or the description. It's going to give me everything that is inside that particular object, because once you call the name of the object, it will give you everything inside it. It will not give you any one of the value, it will give you all. But that's not what you want to be doing too most of the time. You really want to access a particular property from it. You only want to get information about a particular property, not all of them that is there. Just like the way we have the array, that you don't just want to be accessing all of them, you want to access a particular value from the list. So here too, from your object, you can access that value. Maybe on the screen, the only thing we just want to display is the name and description and the price. We don't want to show the sizes. So how do you call a particular property from your object? That's where this the items that we have done here comes in there. So which is what you can use to access any value or to access any property from your object there. So just like the way you can do it for the array that you access and you modify, for the object too, you can access and you can modify the object properties there. So here we have two ways of doing it. We have the dot notation method and we have the array notation method. So we have the dot notation method and we have the array notation. So when you're talking about the dot notation, so here you are going to have the object name, so which is whatever the variable that you have there, then followed by dot and followed by the key. So this is how you can access any value like that. And if you want to modify, you just need to set it to the value like this. So when you use this one, you want to access, so this one will access like that, and this one is going to modify. Don't forget, anytime you're using this operator here, it's changing whatever you have on the left to what you have on the right there. So when you want to have access using the dot notation, you are going to have the name of the object followed by dot. The dot is always constant. then followed by the key. But the key is depending on the object that you are working with. So whatever the key that is inside that object, that's what you are going to use. And if you want to modify, this is how you are going to modify stuff using the dot notation there. And as you can see, these are the samples here. So we have our user. So let me copy my user again, and let me copy this product too in case we need them like that. So let me copy them down here. So let me copy it down here. So where is it? Let me comment this. Then let me move all this one up like this and remove this. So now, assuming we want to have access to the name of the object. So what do? We use the object name. So here now, as you can see, the object name is user. That's why it is user here. Then followed by the dot, then followed by the key that you want to access there. So since we want to access the name of this user, we just need to use the name of the object, followed by the dot, and followed by the property. And as you can see here, we are getting Abdul Rakib like that. You are not going to get the key. What you get is the value. Anytime you use the object followed by dot, then followed by the key, it will give you the value that that particular key is represented there. So if I need the CGPA now, I just need to use user then dot CGPA like this. And if I save it, you see that it's going to give us the value for that particular items that we're looking for there like that. The same thing for age. So if I need the age, I just need to call the user.age, and it will go into that your object, look for this key, and once you can find the key there, it will give you the value of that key. The same thing here too. If I use the user.isAdmin, as you can see, it's giving us the value. But what if the key is not there? So you get undefined. Anytime you try to access a key that is not inside the object, this is what you are going to get. So it means it cannot find it. Just like our array, if you try to ask access to the index and that thing doesn't have there, you get undefined. The same thing here too. If you try to have access to the property key that is not there, then you are going to get undefined as the value. So which means what you are looking for there doesn't exist, or the value is undefined. Because I actually set the value to undefined to yourself like that. So here I can just use f like this to just be undefined. So actually, no, don't forget undefined is a value too, which is something that we've talked about there. So if I call this user, in order for you to call this in, you just need to use the object name followed by dots and followed by the key. So here the dots and followed by f. And if I save it, you see that we are still going to get undefined because that's the value that is there. So undefined means this thing doesn't exist, but the value is set to undefined like this. But undefined is what you always get anytime you try to access any property from your object and that property is not on that object there. So you are going to get undefined like that. So here, this is how you can access any of these your items here using the dot notation. Don't forget, we are talking about the dot notation. It's not only dot notation that we have there, we have the array notation, because there are two ways of having access to this in there. So let me move all this one up like this so that we can have this one down here separately. So apart from using the dot notation, you can actually use this array notation too. When you're dealing with your array, for example, I have this array here, which is having 5, 6. So if I want to have access to any of the value, I just need to use array and followed by the index. So this one will give us 5. So this one will give us 5. While to get the 6, we just need to use index 1. So just like the way you are doing it here for array, you can actually do it for object too. So object support the dots, and at the same time, it supports this array notation. But when you want to deal with the array notation, when you are dealing with objects, so you are going to have the object name followed by this square bracket. But here now, this is not number, because what you are doing here is not number. So whatever key you want to have access to, it needs to be in a quote. It needs to be a string like this for now. For now, whatever key that you want to have access to from your object, it needs to be a string. So and here now I'm using single quote, but don't forget, when you're talking about string, you can either be these single quotes, so this one will work, double quote will work like this, and again to the backtick will work. That's the reason why we talk about this thing first, because we'll be using them. And as you can see here, I've been using string since, but anytime I mention string, it can be either this one or this one or this one, but I can just use any one of them. As you can see, I'm using single, but that doesn't mean you cannot use double. So double too will work. So whether you use double quote or you use single quote or you use backtick, the three of them are string. As long as I mention string, you can use any method to generate your string. So just because I'm using single here doesn't mean you cannot use double or the backtick. It will still work. So if I want, I can use the double quote there. But right now, I'm using single quote. So this is how you can access using the array notation. And at the same time, if you want to modify, just set it to whatever value that you want there, like that. And this one is what you are going to use to modify. Please look at it. When you are dealing with the dots, just add the dot, then followed by the key. No quote is not a string are there like that. But when you are dealing with array notation, you have the square brackets, and the key is going to be a string there like that. So the type of the this thing is going to be string. You have to put in a quote when you're using the array notation. For now, when you're using array notation, you have to put in a quote, because if you don't put in a quote, you think that you're doing something else that I've not talked about there. So here, when you're using the dots, just type the dots followed by the key that is coming from that object. Or if it is the array notation you want to use there, then the key have to be in a quote. Don't forget, the quote can either be single, the double, or the backtick code there like that. So for example, we have this product. So if you want to use the dot notation, you can actually use it here. So for example, here now, if I want to access to the name of the product, so what do we do now? So if I want to have access to the name of the product, what do I type to have access to the name of the product? So what do I type to have access to the name of the product? What do I type to have access to the name of the product? So hello, are we see here?
Yes, sir. I'm still here, sir.
What do I type to have access to the name of the product? I want to print that sugar. So what do I type to get that value sugar on the console there? What do I type inside?
Yeah, you put this space the array notation
No, no, no.
symbol.
I'm saying I'm using the old one. I want the old one, not the array notation right now. I want the dots. What do I type when I want to use?
You just put a string.
I said the dot. I want to have access to that sugar from this product. So what do I type? What do
The name.
what do I type? I will just type name like this. I will just type name like this, and it will bring it out.
No, no, no.
I said what do I type here in order for me to get the sugar from product? That's what I'm saying. I want to use the dot. I'm not talking about the array now. I say what do I type to get the sugar? What am I going to type? Oh, time is going. Time is going.
Like, I don't understand you, sir. I don't understand you. What
Look at it.
will you
Look at
type
it.
now?
Look at it. I have this object. This is the object here. I said I want to print out the sugar from this object. So what do I type here so that it will print out sugar out? Look at it. We have sugar as part of the value inside this object. We have sugar. We have this description. So for example, my sugar is the sweetest like this. This is the description. This is the price. So here now, from the list of all these properties here, I only want to print out this name. I don't want to print all of them. So how do I get out this sugar from this product? Using the dot notation there. What do I need to type?
Yeah, you use the name you use to the key.
So I will just the key is name now. So is this what I'm going to type? This is what I'm going to type, right? Is this what I'm going to type?
Something is going to come first before the name.
Is it what I'm going to type? Because I will type name.
Something is going to come first before the
What
name.
is going to come first? What is going to come first? Oh, I just explained this thing. I said here, when you want to have access to object properties, you type the object first, followed by dot, then followed by the key. That's all. So if I want to have access to description now, if I just save it there, then by the time you get to the screen or this, as you can see, I'm getting my sugar is
Is this
descripted.
yes?
This is the object. Before you can have access to anything inside it, you must pass through the object. You can't just go inside the object that you want to pick anything without this one being aware of it like that. So you need to come through the object. And how do you come through the object to get any of its property? You either use the dot notation or you use the array notation. And I just explained the dot notation by giving some of this sample here where you use user.cgba and stuff like that. I'm not saying
Yeah.
the same thing here. How do we have access to this sugar? So in order for you to have access to the sugar now, what do? You type the object name first because you need to pass through the object and followed by the dot and followed by the key of the value that you are looking for. So we are looking for this sugar. This is what we want to print out. But what is the key of the sugar? This is it here. It is name. So since the name is the key or the property there, so we need to call the object, follow by dot, then follow by the key. And if I save it now, you see that we are getting sugar. So what if I want to get the price in call? What do I use now? I want to get the price.
Yeah, you just put you just use same thing. You just change it the name, you just change it to price.
Okay. And we're going to get 67. The
Yes.
same thing too, if I want to get the sizes, you just need to pass the key and it's going to give you the value that that particular one is in there like that. But what is this one going to
But
print out? What is
but sir, what if you want to have two of it? Like you want to have the name and the price at the same time, sir.
Then they are separate stuff. You have to call them separately. You can't use one stuff to call the two of them. That's different stuff. So now if I want to call the name, so the name is going to be here. Then the next thing is going to be product and dot description like this. So there are different stuff. There's no way you use one stuff here to have access to both name and description. No, you have to call them separately. So if you want name, product or name. If you want description, product or description. So if I save it now, then we're going to have the two because I'm calling the two. So this is sugar here, and this is the description here. I like that because I put the two of them on one line because they are inside one console log like that. So you have to put them separately, not that you use or there's another way of calling them like that. So for now, you have to call them based on the property uh, name like that. What is property name is a key. So that's what I'm calling property. So whether I call it key or call it property, it's still the same thing there like that. But what we are using here is what we call the dot notation. So what we are doing here is a dot notation, but we don't want to use dot notation on this line. What we want to use is array notation. So in order for you to use the array notation, what you do is to call your objects. So here it is going to be products. Then you have the square bracket, and inside the square bracket, you are going to pass a key that you are looking for. So look at it. So when you are dealing with the dots, so when you are dealing with the dots, you are going to have the objects followed by dots, then followed by the key. So look at there. Both of them will give you the same thing. But what we did here on line 349 is what we call the dot notation. And what we have on line 350 here is what we call array notation. See the difference here. So when you're talking about the array notation, that one, you are going to put the square bracket, and inside the square bracket, you pass the string for the key that you're looking for. Please, when you are dealing with array notation, it has to be in a quote. But the code, I don't know which code you want to use. It can be any of the codes, but it must be in a quote. So whether it is single or double, it can be any one of them. But when you're dealing with array notation, it must be like this. Where you're going to have the square, inside the square, you have the key in the quotes there, like that. But here you can use the dots, here you can use the array. But you might be thinking that why do we have to do it like this, since there's a simple way here. You are going to see the reason why we have this method too. There's not anything you have here. You are not just creating them for just using sake. They are always there because of a particular reason that are there like that. But right now, just know that you can use the dots and at the same time you can use the array notation. But when you're dealing with array, as you can see, the first one we use the dots, and the second one we use the array, but we are getting the same value because they are calling the same property, which is name here. But when you're dealing with the dots, this is how it's going to be. When you're dealing with array, this is how it's going to be, which is something that we can do for one of the other properties there too, like that. For example, here I can use price. The same thing here too in the code. I'm going to have price. So if I save it, you see that we are going to get the same value. So the first one is using the dots, while the second one is using the array notation. For now, I would advise you to be using the dots. But when you get to the time we'll be using this array, I'm going to bring it out there like that. So I'm going to bring it out like that. So we can have access to the value that is inside your array, and at the same time, you can modify the stuff. But before we call it a day, because we just have like a few minutes left, so I'm going to create one object, and I will be asking you what is going to be the output of these items here. So let me quickly work on this. So this is going to be class work like this. And what do you want to do here, or I should even send it to the group so that you type it yourself. So create. So this is
So let's do it here together now.
all right. To
Mm.
create an object with the following properties. So we want to create an object with the following properties. Let me make this into go to next line. Don't want it to be taking me into word wrap. Yeah, it should wrap. So with the following property, we want to create an object with the following property. What are the properties? You want to create styles. So it's going to have styles. But what are the values? So styles is just going to be a string there like that. So just create any of with whatever value you want to. So it's going to have styles. Apart from styles, it's going to have, or let me start with this. So give it a color property. It's going to have age. It's going to have school like this, and it's going to have class. So how do we create this object? So you can name it anything. Like that. For example, here. So what do we need to type to create the object? So what do we need when you want to create this object with this property?
Yeah, just console log first.
Console. What are you console log? You are creating object, not that your access. You've not created what you want to access. What you are talking about is access. What do you want to console log? Something that you've not created, you want to console log it. This one is saying create the object first. You have to create object before you start having access to it. You can't just have access to the object that is not created here. So create an object. Let me give it a class. Let me just give it the name. Create an object. Student like this. So create an object student. So now we are convert this in, convert it to a
Okay.
code. But this is the text now. You need to convert it to code. So you are asked to create an object student with the following properties. So how do you do it when you are asked to do something like that? Like this. You are given
Yeah, just have the student name first.
student name. How? What do I need to type? That's what I'm asking. What do I need? Battery is going on. What do I need to type? I have 70% left.
Okay.
What do I need
Yeah,
to
just
type?
type the student first. The student.
So
The student
students,
that you want to create the object.
yes. Okay. I don't type the student. I just type the student. So what do I need to do next? Because you are doing
So
an exam now.
color yellow.
What's color yellow? What I I should
The properties you put the this thing, that sign you put that sign next.
that
So
it's part of what you need to know. The
okay.
here now, this is how to you start with const. You need to let this thing know that whether it is let or const. Don't forget when you are declaring a variable, you either use let or const. But I mentioned it up here that when you want to create objects, so if you go back up here, I told you that when you want to create object, you need to start with color, followed by the name, followed by the assignment operator, then followed by the curly brace. This is what I was expecting from you here. So when you want to create the object, then what I was expecting for you to say is that okay, you're going to do const, followed by students, followed by the assignment operator, then followed by the curly brace. And inside the curly brace, you now have the color property where you are going to assign. Then you are going to have the age property you assign. Then you have the school,
Mm.
and you give it a value like this. So that's what I'm expecting.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to say.
But you did not say it because that's how you know we are dealing with other work now. So
Yeah, I get it.
and that's how I'm going to know that you actually understand what is going on there. Like that. So question two be about how do you have access? So um what's that? So print out the color of the student object. So how do we print out the color of the student object like this? How do
Yeah, you now console now.
the console of what?
Student object. You put the student object. Abi, what are you looking for
Print out
exactly?
the color of the student object. No, read the question. No. Print out
Yeah, you now have this thing.
the what?
Uh,
You now have what?
oh, color.
So I will, okay, color like that.
No.
Is that not what you said?
The No, that's not what I said though.
You said you now have the color. It,
No, you have to put the this thing first. The students.
it's whatever you are saying. I'm typing. So you are saying it in your mind, but you did not say it out. You know you are not the one typing. I'm the one typing. And whatever you are saying,
Okay.
type. So
Okay.
and we are getting the blue.
Blue. Okay.
So question three. Uh, change the age from 35 to 89. So change the object's age from 35 to 39. So what do we need to do here to change the age?
You console log first again.
Console log. What's concern console and changing? Console is to get, but here now you are modifying, so you are not console log at any.
Mm.
You are asked to change, and I
User. You bring out the user. You bring out the user, and
where
you
you
put the
which user like
which is the no. Like the user which I'm talking about is delete this first. I'm talking about the students.
uh-huh.
You put the sign again.
Which sign?
Mm.
We have a lot of sign. Just a sign. Which sign?
The modifying sign.
Which okay, like this.
No, these brackets.
That's not what I said.
No,
Change the object age. They are not saying you to change the object itself. They are asking you to change the age. And I mentioned it here that when you want to modify, that's why I talk about. Can you see modifier? Can you see the pattern when you are changing modify when you are modifying your stuff? When you are
so
modifying
that's the bracket. That bracket is what I'm talking about.
or this here.
That first one
No,
you
it's
first
not
said.
following now. Look at what he said. He said that after this, I should put this sign. Then from
No. I'm talking about brackets. That bracket sign.
so this should be 8. This is just the simple stuff. Yes, simple from 35 to 89 like this. That's all. This is what this thing is. Okay, print out the new age. So how do we print out the new age now?
You print out the new age as I
Yes,
don't
now the
understand
one
it.
we just changed now. How do we print it out? No, we change it from 35 to 89. So
39. Yeah, you just call it out the normal way, sir.
which normal way? Me, I don't know. You know, you are the one teaching me now, so I don't know what is
Okay.
normal way. You call what I need to
Okay.
type. Me, I
Yeah,
do
you
normal way.
the console log. You console log again.
Uh-huh.
You put the students and you put the age. So
Yeah,
the new age will pop up.
yeah, it's out already. So that will be all.
Uh-huh.
That will be all before.
Okay.
So let me stop the video.
Thank you, sir.
Just one